I'm age 55 soon, single, male, without dependents or family, and work in the frontline hospitality. Low net worth, without substantial assets or liabilities. My name is Nick. Today I have this story to share with you about Nick, and he comes from a lower financial situation, just to put things nicely. And I gave him the nickname Nick to conceal his real identity. The reason I'm sharing with you this case today is because I've been looking for a case to share with viewers who are slightly disadvantaged in their financial background. And I've been looking for months for a case. Jason, who's a viewer of the channel, has challenged me to cover one for the lower income segment because he hopes that I'm one that sincerely wants to help all Singaporeans. I take on that challenge with pride, and that's why I'm presenting to you today's case. Hi guys, welcome back. Let's start with the first sentence that we went through just now about Nick. Nick, 55, work in frontline hospitality job, which is one of the worst places to be. You know, I have a friend who once quit his corporate job to join hospitality as a management trainee. His dream was to be in the hotel line. That's why he took that career plunge. And in doing so, he took a massive pay cut. Long story short, 2-3 years into the road, he felt burnout. At least his ambitions of being in the hospitality line was fulfilled, and he wisely moved back to corporate where the pay is better, the work-life balance is also better. Nick has mentioned also there is low net worth without substantial assets or liabilities. Nick, I would suggest don't lead off with that. If you are interviewing or if you're finding a partner, these don't look very impressive to sound. I'd much rather you say that I am still building up my net worth. Still building up is half glass full. I am low net worth. Feels very defeatist. At least that's my point of view. So take it constructively. So let's move on to understand what are Nick's main challenges. Housing. He's never owned any property, currently renting a small space. We'll find a bit more details, but renting generally is a bad idea. Unless you are on an expat pay package and you might be going to US as your next leg. That one a different case. But if you're Singaporean, and especially if income is a struggle, then rental is really like an albatross around your neck in terms of your savings ratio. Cannot afford resale, looking at 2-room BTO flexi since 2023 but unsuccessful so far, and concerned about other options and finances. I understand BTO is always oversubscribed, but trying for 2 years, I'm also a bit surprised how come still unsuccessful. Nick, not sure how frequent you have been down to make your ballots, and I don't know the rules also about that. But as much as I can, I'll suggest you throw in your name for every single ballot and expedite this process, because later I'll share with you numbers on how it will magically transform your finances. Insurance is the next challenge. He has MediSave coverage, whole life and investment linked plans, no private accident, hospitalization or medical insurance, which is actually the same thing. Later I'll quiz Nick a bit more details, because when you don't have a lot of savings, the worst thing that can hit you is medical bills. Then you really go bankrupt. Retirement, definitely inadequate. OA needed for HDB, so cannot transfer to SA, which is less than a third of FRS. No investments made. If you are younger viewing this now, please start your investment journey earlier. Nick has reached 55 already, and therefore the climb is a bit uphill. Nick, I think you agree that you should have started your investment journey a bit earlier. But never mind, it's always better to be late than never. SA is less than a third of current FRS. And you know, previously I've done before median income projections of CPF, how much you build. I realized that Nick probably was low income for his entire career. Because if I were to plug in figures like this, that means if he was age 23 with 1,000 starting pay, and this pay climbs gradually at 3%, that may explain why Nick's special account is still so low. In addition, I'm also guessing that there could be periods where there's unemployment, or there are periods where there's self-employed, like do Grab driver, then there's no CPF. That explains why someone's CPF account is not fully built up to full retirement sum, which actually is not too difficult once you combine OA and SA. Let's move on to next challenge, which is capacity. Lacks software and resources such as knowledge, wisdom, mindset, psychology, finances, income, and time. Well, again, there seems so much lacking, but we need to stay optimistic. What are you good at versus what you are lacking? So this part on lacking knowledge, wisdom, mindset, psychology, I think all this is learnable. spend your Sundays reading books or evenings reading books. Actually, I share with Nick my book, 28 Days to Financial Freedom, if you're looking for investment ideas. I'll leave purchasing links below, and I've also another book that could help you depending on your situation. This is How to $1 Million. Either of these two books could help you in your journey, so pick them up with the links below. So I had to ask Nick, correct? Nick, what's your pay? How much are you saving right now, and how much is in your CPF? Because that's very likely your biggest pot, correct? So Nick has mentioned that he has OA 178,000. He'll need to inform CPF holding his OA to RA because he's going to turn 55 soon, correct? And that is true. CPF allows you to notify them 6 months in advance. Know this rule, especially if you are in a similar situation as Nick. SA 75,000. No wonder it's mentioned that it's a third of full retirement sum. Cash 40,000. That is pretty low for someone at age of 55, which means a very low savings ratio. And it reminds me of this quote by late Charlie Munger. Your first 100,000 is a bitch. I don't care how you get it. You have to walk everywhere. You have to find coupons. By hook or by crook, get to your first 100,000. I think this has some wisdom because this 100,000 is very liberating in terms of mindset. So you really have to cut back on everything and make sure you get there. Stay on right at the very end. I have tips on how to 10x Nick's savings ratio. And the starting point for Nick is current basic pay 2,005. Net take home is 2,000 with OT that fluctuates wildly. So I had to ask Nick, correct? Nick, okay, I understand now your savings, your pay, your CPF. What about your expenses? First things first, insurance. Premiums 1,726 and 1,324. Total 3K plus, which equates to $250 per month, correct? That is huge considering Nick's low income situation. And he has this question. Seems like these two whole life and investment link plans may be misguided decisions to adjust or surrender. To here, I can share my point of view, but again, this is not financial advice. Speak to a qualified advisor. But the first thing I'll flag up is that once Nick sent me some information, I realized that the first one being the investment link plan is paid by credit card annually. So at least Nick qualifies for credit card. There's some cash rebate he should go and optimize. Get your hands on each of all these cash back because it makes a difference. And the premium frequency annually for investment link plan means there's not much dollar cost averaging, correct? Usually I would think at the very least do it monthly so that you can have dollar cost averaging if you use an investment link plan to build wealth, which in my opinion is not the best vehicle to start things with. There is a 60,000 coverage, if I interpret correctly, as critical illness. But the problem is this. This plan doesn't have a completion of premium. It will run for a lifetime, and I would suggest for Nick to rethink the cost buying a pure CI term plan versus this investment link plan that he has. Take note again, investment link plans, the charges would jump after 55, 60 because it's on exponential curve up. It will eventually eat into the investment value. So there are points to rethink. Let's pull up the whole life plan. This also has 60,000 of critical illness coverage, but the problem again is there's also no premium end. How to keep paying for premium, correct? Usually for whole life plans, I would build for private clients, fast completion, 5 years, 10 years, get it over and done with. And for kids, when you buy whole life plan, you complete premium, you give to them FOC, rather than pay for lifetime, which is a drag on finances and makes planning a lot more cumbersome. But coming to here, these two plans are taking up $250 plus per month in cash flow. Has this prevented some money to be allocated to buying a hospital rider or not? Because if you upgrade your integrated shoe plan, you can cover maybe no need private hospital, no need even a hospital. Just go for the B1 ward. But when you purchase that with a rider, you're much better covered for pre and post hospitalization. So the B1 ward plans are usually very cheap. It's not like the plan where it covers you to private hospital, where many of you viewing are paying big premiums for. The cover until B1 ward one is really cheap. So Nick, I would suggest if health permits, consider covering that. That'll be money better spent. The next part about Nick's major expenses are his housing. I asked Nick about understanding his grants because for HDB, there are grants, and especially for low income segment, the grants are really going to change your life. So Nick is aware that he has singles grant of 15,000 or less based on HFE letters. At least he's taken time to go and do his HFE. However, singles must pay 15,000 of premium on price of 2-room flexi flat. Wow, I didn't know about this and I went to verify. Apparently it's true leh. I don't know why it exists, but if it is, we need to factor into the equation. Next question. Continue renting? It feels unstable and often at the mercy of landlords. Unsustainable as I age. Absolutely true. You can't keep renting. Someday I'm afraid your landlord might call you to leave. But I had to dig deeper, correct? What exactly is Nick paying? Is he paying thousands in terms of rent or not? Actually not. He's paying $400 for floor and cupboard space. Not a room or sharing with co-tenants. I never know you can rent just a floor space. That in my opinion seems like a difficult living condition. It's arranged by a mutual friend without formal tenancy contract. Strict conditions and limitations including taking care of the flat, pets, plants, errands for the owner as required. Wow, so it's like free labor like that. I'm not too sure if that's a great idea to be there long term. Because Nick, if you think about this, environment is very important. If you are in an environment that is harsh or puts you at a disadvantage, you realize that you are unable to grow and be happy. As the saying goes, when a flower doesn't grow, you change the environment in which it grows, not the flower. Should you consider changing your environment? Another quote, do not wait for a change of environment before you act. Cause a change of environment through action. You can act upon your present environment so as to cause yourself to be transferred to a better environment. That is why many a times, in order to succeed, we have to change our environment. That's what I've done recently for my work. I'll be transiting a new team as I seek to grow. I'll be sharing more information with you down the road, but today's case is about Nick. So there are a few crucial parts to housing numbers. How much loan you can qualify and how much grant you'll be getting. According to Nick, the HFE prudent loan is $49,000 for 5 years, moderate $75,000 for 8 years. I don't understand what is prudent or moderate. I hope the max loan Nick can get is $75,000 and I'll use that as an assumption. The next part, grant. Originally, I was estimating he can get $32,500. From his confirmation, based on his OT pay and stuff, he's only qualified $15,000 with this pay range. So the entire game is to simulate, correct, what exactly Nick can buy to change his environment, even though BTO will still take some time. If Nick buys a $150,000 two-room flexi flat, singles premium $15,000 added in, stamp duty $1,650, you can choose calculators to verify that, and if I'm not wrong, HDB conveyancing of $500 still needs to be added. Grants $15,000, loan, hopefully moderate one can be used, $75,000. What would the equation be? Take note again, there's a cap to Nick's loan in this situation. Therefore, we cannot use the down payment of 25% for HDB flat because the loan cannot cover 75%. That's why we have to work backwards on how much is the down payment needed. So the final figure for down payment in this situation is about $77,000, which is actually okay leh. Nick has $178,000 in OA, correct? So this can be settled. In fact, Nick can even consider in this situation to do full payment. Don't even need to take HDB loan and be debt free. The house is fully paid. Possible, but there's another way to think about it, which is if you take the HDB loan, it's 2.6%. If Nick preserves more in his OA, he's able to transfer to his RA, which grows at 4% and eventually gives him more CPF life, correct? So there's two angles to looking at things. Today I'll just sound out for consideration. But I want to stretch this figure because at $150,000, I think the amount of flats are very limited. And I want Nick to be able to go and ballot for each and every project to chop get that two-room flat. Because again, change your environment and everything will change. So if we were to stretch this figure, what if Nick goes for a $215,000 two-room flexi BTO? Add a $15,000 premium, the stamp duty would now be $2,800 and we add additional $500 of fees. Grants he can get $15,000 and loan, now let's take the prudent one of $50,000. How much must Nick cough out from his CPF OA? That figure works out to be $168,300, which is still okay. Hopefully this $10,000 can still be preserved in OA if HDB allows. Do double check with them because I'm thinking this $10,000 could be emergency buffer just in case there's a loss of job and stuff. We don't want that mortgage to become a burden. If I'll Nick, I'll go for this equation. Save more into the house. Get the bigger one Because 2-room flexis, there's sizes also, right? So if you get a bigger one, you have more space, you can even potentially rent out some space to someone to live in together with you. Again, there's room rental, space rental within the MOP framework, and that could be a game changer when we talk about how to 10x Nick's savings rate, correct? And if you're following our story so far, I'm kind of suggesting one thing which can be summarized in a one-liner. That one-liner is go all in for that BTO. All in. Usually on this channel, I say do not all in, do not all in. But at this situation, owning a BTO flat can bring a lot more happiness and stability. Owning a BTO could change Nick's fortunes 180 degrees. Go all in for it and start balloting ASAP. There's one at Sembawang in July. Keep tabs with HDB for all other launches. Don't be too picky because again, the faster you get your own flat, the faster you can transform and make that change. And don't worry, your OA can actually settle the monthly mortgage. Let me know in the comment sections whether you think my suggestion is too extreme or not. I really come from a place of good faith, and this is really what I'll do if I were in Nick's situation. I've actually another further idea to add in just for consideration. You know when you buy a resale flat, you can actually buy with another single. I've seen it before. That means two singles eligible above the age of 35 can combine to buy a 3-room flat. And grants will still be applied accordingly. And in this situation, you realize that you can combine 200,000 and 200,000 to aim for a 400,000 3-room flat. If you aim correctly, you can even rent out one of the rooms. And that is a full room rental, which will be more than $1,000 of rent income. This strategy only works if you have someone that you trust and can share the house. Don't dive into a house blindly with a stranger. Make sure it's your best friend that you're okay to put all your life savings and all in together to transform your lives. Now this next chapter, I'll be sharing with you how I'll 10x Nick's savings rate. Nick hasn't really shared how much he saves, but if I were to plant the figures, I'll guess that rent, $400, policy cost of $254 average per month. There's certainly going to be some food costs, some transport costs, some personal expenses, and some bills. Then I guess he's saving $200 to $300 per month, which will explain how he's built up $40,000 over 10-15 years. At 55, this is a problem because there's not many years left of work, and 40,000 cannot allow Nick to retire. The crux of the problem is this savings rate, and this is how I'll transform Nick's savings ratio. The first thing I'll suggest Nick do is to consider finding a new job. Don't worry, changing jobs may be for the better because you don't have that much to lose actually. Is there a place that you can get a pay raise? Because if you can raise your pay from $2,500 to $3,000, you realize that you have made an extra $500 more. And there are actually many manual work positions out there that could pay you $3,000. But don't just find any job. I would suggest also to find one near his house. Why so? The key reason is to cut down on your transport costs and cut down on your transport time. Rich people understand time is money. Rich people understand energy is money. Which means if your hotel is in Orchard and you stay in Woodlands, you travel 45 minutes down, exhausted every day, you'll be stuck in this poor financial situation. What I would do instead is to find whether I can go Woodlands, Sheng Siong or not to find a job. I don't know why I throw Sheng Siong up. Maybe I'm a shareholder, I'm happy to support them, or I've seen them give big bonuses during COVID, so I've always fond memories of how they take care of staff. Is there a position there that could pay you what you're looking for and be walking distance from the place that you are renting a space in? If there is, you can save on time because you can walk or take a bicycle there. You can save on energy. You need the energy to read more and to do, second thing, side hustles. Is there a side hustle that you can do to make a little bit of income? Before you think it's impossible, let me share with you a fellow YouTuber that I've watched grow since 2019 when I started this YouTube channel. You can check out Tiny Creature Hub. Kim C, I've seen your stuff before. Happy to do a shout out for you. And Kim C actually stays in a 2-room flat if I'm not wrong. He's much better than me now on selling things on Shopee and TikTok Live. You can see what he's doing, and Kim C, if you have tips, leave in the comment sections because I'm nudging to go the route of buying his own flat and doing side hustles similar to you. The third key pillar needed is this rent income. Instead of paying people $400 of rent expense, you get a BTO and rent out some space for $800. Minus $400 to plus $800. If we add it into the financial equation, you would realize that you can potentially transform the entire savings ratio and do a 10x. Food cost to cut down, transport cost to cut down, and save up $2,670 per month. If you times 12, that is $30,000 savings a year. If you times 5 more years, that is $150,000. Is $150,000 enough to retire? Maybe yes, maybe no, but at least it's a very decent shot. Nick, hopefully some ideas here can inspire you to take better action. And as always, if you have watched this and you know of someone who is similar to Nick in his or her situation, send this video to them and hopefully they can become better off financially. Thank you very much for watching right at the very end. Let me share with you this previous episode I've done that has someone also in financial difficulty. I do hope to help more Singaporeans in their finances, and this is proof of my continued work. Smash a like as always. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.